you got to care for it. You got to make sure that it's getting enough of the nutrients and the life-giving elements that allows it to thrive. And all that takes discipline. The same thing with your business. You own your word. When you say it, you mean it. You can do them today or not do them today. You can do them now or you can do them later. There's no urgency to it except for the urgency that you bring to it.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Art of Mortgage Marketing podcast. I am here with the one and only Doran Aldana. So welcome, everyone. Hello, Doran. How are you today?
I am blessed and highly flavored and favored, and I'm excited to be with the one and only Penny Wrightley today for episode 2 in our 3-part series called Get This Right, guys, as you hear this, because you cannot say this 10 times fast without stuttering. I promise you. It is a tongue twister. The 10 tenets of top producers. Say that 10 times fast. I double dog dare you.
That's a tongue twister, that one. That one catches me every time. The 10 tenets of top producers. Say that 10 times fast.
Oh, my goodness. My wife's always razzing me because I have a bit of a penchant for alliteration, as you can tell. So I always have to get things to rhyme and get alliteration going. And it's kind of silly and stupid, but it's my thing. So, but it becomes a little bit of a tongue tripper, if you will, when you have so many T's all stacked up together. So bear with us if we trip on that a few times through this episode. You can't say we didn't warn you in advance. You're welcome.
Well, let's keep the fun rocking today. So since we are in episode 2 today, why don't we do a quick little recap from part 1 where we started? So let's talk about what is a tenet and why bother with the 10 tenets of top producers.
Yeah, so go back to episode 1, part 1 in this 3-part series, and you'll get all the good stuff, all the juice. But for those of you who missed it, I'm going to satiate your tantalizing curiosity by at least giving you the definition from the Oxford Dictionary of what a tenet is so that you can kind of catch up to speed. So a tenet is a principle or belief, especially one of the main principles of religion or philosophy. So, of course, here we're talking about the religion of success when it comes to the front lines of capitalism as a mortgage pro, otherwise known as a philosophy. I think that's probably a good term for us to use. We're talking about a philosophy of success that we see as the golden thread woven through so many of the different top producers we'd have the privilege and opportunity to work with, to observe, to study, and to coach over the last 2 decades. And so that's what we're going to be using as the definition of tenet today. And one of the best examples of someone who is just an absolute sage when it comes to business philosophy is the one and only late and great Jim Rohn. And he had a great quote that reminds us why philosophy matters. He said, your philosophy, your personal philosophy is the greatest determining factor in determining how your life works out. The greatest determining factor in determining how your life works out. It's not the level of your talent. It's not the level of your education. It's the level of your philosophy. And the better and more potently powerful your philosophy, the more you can be like the eagle, that the stronger the wind, the soaring goes higher, the higher you can soar. And that's the cool thing about an eagle versus a chicken, right? When the storm hits, the chickens hide and the eagles, they soar higher. So just like rules in a game, whether it be basketball or hockey or golf or whatever, if we didn't have rules, it would be a silly game and it would be meaningless and frankly worthless because you just mess around and you wouldn't really know how to win or how to lose. And people would just do their own thing. It would be complete anarchy, right? It would not be fun. So just like rules in a game make the game more fun and fulfilling and meaningful, so too tenets, if they're in sync with how life works, the truth of how life works, they help us have a life and a business, in the case of the context of our episode and our podcast, Art of Mortgage Marketing, a life and a business that's more fun and fulfilling and meaningful. as well. So that is why we're doing this series, and we're going to pick up where we left off from our first installment and keep this party rocking with this episode, part 2, with 3 more tenets out of the 10.
Wonderful. I love it. Well, I was so excited with our last episode that we did. I almost just wanted to keep rolling and keep going with it, but we ran out of time. So hence why we're doing this as a 3-part series, right? So as a teaser, we want to get people to listen to the first installment of this series. And I was so excited. I found the first episode to be so powerful. Being a mortgage professional myself, I've been in the industry. This April will be 25 years that I've personally been in the industry as a mortgage pro, taking all the beatings in the industry over the years.
About a sucker for punishment.
Got a few war wounds in the industry, right? Have a few war wounds. So let's just kind of recap a little bit here. What were the first 3 tenets of top producers in the first episode?
That's a great question. So the first one, and again, we're going to give you all the juice and a deep dive into all these 3 when you go back to the first episode, but just as a little teaser, the first tenet was seek not what you can get for yourself, but rather what you can give to others. So it's about generosity. It's about being other people focused, and it's about being a servant leader. The second tenet was success is in the becoming, not in the attaining. So that was about, hey, we don't achieve to be happy, we happily achieve. It's in the becoming, not the attaining, where fulfillment lies. And then the third tenet we covered last time was trials are opportunities for growth, not for griping, although we tend to do that as humans. When a trial hits, we're probably going to gripe for a minute or two. That's natural. But really what differentiates top producers from the mediocre middle, and certainly from all the rest, is their proclivity and the muscle they've built to have that fortitude in the midst of the storm, the resilience, the resourcefulness in the midst of the storm, and to find a way to fly their kite higher, like we talked about with the eagle, to soar higher in the midst of the storm. So if you want the juice from those 3 tenets, go back to the first episode in this 3-part series, and we're going to give you a deep dive into all 3 of those. That's a little teaser. Let's dive in now with part 2, because we got a whole lot more in store.
You got it. Beautiful. Yes. So please, guys, if you haven't listened to the first episode, please do. It was extremely powerful, hits really hard. So let's keep the ball rolling here today. So what are the next 3 tenets of top producers that every mortgage pro needs to know? Doran, please tell us, fill us in.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's really hard, frankly, to boil down these tenets to the top 10. Like, that was not an easy thing to do. I've heard that public speaking, the elite of the elite public speakers, of which I am not one, but certainly have the aspiration to be. I've heard from some of my mentors that the hardest part of crafting a great sermon or a great talk or a great keynote is not so much what you are going to be talking about as the rough material that is initially written down when they're drafting their talk, but rather the difficult challenge in pruning out what they're leaving on the table and not actually including in their talk. So likewise here, there was a lot that I had initially as raw material, and there was a lot I left on the table that I pruned out just because, frankly, there's only so much time here. So I hope you guys will appreciate the fact that there is certainly a lot of pruning that happened behind the scenes before this is being served up to you. And I hope it's valuable that what has been pared down, it really makes an impact for you. So the fourth tenet that I want to share with you guys today that picks up from the first 3 from part 1 is make the most of your morning. Make the most of your morning. Now, you've probably heard that, and that might sound kind of like old news, and maybe it sounds a bit like, I've already heard that, I already know that, I already do that. And if you already do that, then that's amazing. This is just a good refresher for you. Maybe it's affirming for you. It's confirming that you're already on the right track. For others of you, chances are there's some opportunity for improvement. And as Tony Robbins often says, we often need reminding more than we need educating. So maybe this is just another reminder for you. how important it is to make the most of your mornings, because most mortgage pros are not very intentional when it comes to their mornings. They tend to stay up late. Maybe they're working on their laptop or they're zoning out on Netflix shows. And so they stay up too late because they're doing all the screen time, getting all this blue light, and their brain is buzzing, and it's not in sync with sleep. It's in sync with wakeness. So then they stay up too late. They get up too late. They tend to kind of roll out of bed and fuel themselves on coffee, get sucked into the vortex of putting out fires, checking emails, managing their pipeline. And while that might be fine if they're just wanting to kind of have their mortgage business be a hobby and they don't really care about their outcomes and they're just kind of want to wing it, that's not how top producers roll. If you're going to roll like that in your mornings, what tends to be the outcome, Penny, based on your experience, because I know you've got a quarter of a century on the front lines of capitalism as a mortgage professional is a long time. I know you've had the experiential litmus test of the before and after of rolling out of bed and just kind of winging it versus being intentional. From your experience, Penny, what is it like when you kind of just roll out of bed and you're putting out fires and you're in reactionary mode and you're not really being intentional about your morning? How does that tend to play out?
Well, it's a tough game, when you just roll out of bed and just kind of go and roll with the punches, you feel like you're not heading in the direction of accomplishing your goals, right? Mm-hmm. You're literally just in reactionary mode. And when you're in reactionary mode, it's really hard to get ahead because you're essentially just stuck in that put out fire, put out fire, put out fire all day long. And so at that point, you're not working towards, maybe you want to close 10 loans next month. You want to close 20 loans next month. And if you're not taking the actions in the morning to be able to make those outbound calls, for example, to be able to fill that pipeline next month, instead, you're just, handling, whatever explosion is happening on your desk. You're not making those outbound efforts. Next month, you're going to have a dead pipeline because instead you just, filled your desk with all the fires. So reactionary mode is not a mode you want to stay in for long. That's for sure. So it does not pay off and you can't win that way.
And this is how that type of morning sounds like. As they say in Mexico, that's no bueno. That is no bueno. We don't want to start the day like that.
Definitely
not.
Our
mornings set the tone for the rest of our day, right? If we're dragging our butt in the morning, we have that funky energy of being in reactionary mode, putting out fires, that funky energy of stress, duress, feeling like, man, I'm constantly trying to herd cats and change diapers and fix problems. That energy tends to bleed into the rest of the day, right?
Yes, absolutely.
An object in motion tends to stay in motion until acted upon by an outside force. So what top producers do is they bring that outside force intentionally right from the start of their day. They don't leave it to happenstance. They don't leave it to default. They do it by design. And so they cultivate success habits that help them win their morning every single workday. Now, do they have weekends off where they sleep in and, chillax and are in their pajamas till 11 o'clock in the morning? By all means, absolutely. Life's too short not to. But when it comes to being on the front lines of capitalism, when it's like go time, Monday to Friday, they have a routine. It's locked and loaded. It's purposeful and it's intentional because they understand that when you win your morning, you win your day. Absolutely. It sets the tone for the rest of the day. So, Penny, like we just talked about, you've got tons of experience on the front lines. You've had the experience of flop mornings and ready to kick ass, take names, chew bubblegum, and crush it mornings. Give us your secret sauce. You know what it's like to start your day haphazard. You've been there, done that. You know the contrast between that and doing it by design. And you've done big numbers, numbers that certainly put you in the upper echelon in this industry. What's your secret sauce morning routine that you lead by example yourself with, and you also teach your mentees, those that are under your leadership, as a, with you being a mentor of theirs as they grow their business? What's your morning routine look like, and how does it impact the rest of your day? Give us a little of your secret sauce, the penny top producer secret sauce, if you will.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, first thing when I get up in the morning is I like to practice just some sort of a moment of gratitude. Every day, I think about the fact that I have a warm home to wake up in every
Mm.
morning, right? There's days, you get out in your car and you're driving around and I see homeless people and it's sad, right? So I practice every day just some sort of moment of gratitude. I'm glad that I'm waking up even, right? So practice a moment of gratitude, right? It doesn't matter what you're grateful for, but be grateful. You're waking up today. You're in a warm home. You have food. You have shelter. You have a healthy family. You're healthy. All of those things. I practice some sort of moment of gratitude first thing in the morning. Drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. Always have some drink of water, of course, right? We want to hydrate first thing. Yep. Hydrate first thing in the morning as well,
Hydration,
right?
mission critical
Yes.
for your ascension.
Mission critical. You got to hydrate, right? Hydrate first thing in the morning. I also like to practice what Doran likes to call learn and burn. So, for me, I'm maybe not super, super active in the morning as I should be. I'm a little bit active in the morning. I do most of my physical activity at night. That's just a preference that I have. But most of what I do is I do a lot of learning in the morning. So
Mm.
all of my morning is surrounded around, I do reading, I do anything to do my learning. So I am practicing any of my trainings that I've done in the past. I've spent a lot of time, money, effort doing all sorts of um, uh, what do I call it? I guess coaching, training, um, mindset training. I've done all of these things. And so I have many, many courses and teachings that I've learned. So I spend a lot of time doing this each morning to get my brain in the space so that I can do all of the things that I need to do throughout the day. I
Mhm.
also make sure typically the night before I have my day already planned. So I know exactly what I need to do that day. So as I'm getting ready for my day, I do my showering in the day. I've recently started doing cold showers because somebody named Doran has
Say
convinced me
what?
to do the cold shower thing. So I've been doing cold rinse offs. Still
Full
not
blown
sure whether I
crazy.
like you on that one yet.
You are going full blown crazy, woman.
Starting to do that one. But I will tell you that cold rinse off is very invigorating. It is. It absolutely, it will wake you up. Absolutely. And then throughout the day, I do get some sort of an activity in as well, because sitting at a desk all day can be very sedentary, and it's really important that you get those steps in. So I do have an elliptical in my home, so I use that whenever I can as well. And then I get into my day. So, and like I said, I've got my day planned. So I do a lot of mentoring with people. So I do mentoring, I have coaching calls, I have meetings, and I jump into my day and I get it going. So yeah, and it's all
That
planned out.
that sounds like a badass morning routine. I'm curious, why do you do what's your preference around evening workouts versus morning workouts? Why do you prefer that?
I think it's more so out of habit. It's something that I've always done. So, as an example, in the summer when it's nicer weather, I live in Ontario, so it's very cold in the winter. So, in the summertime, I always go for walks in the evening, and I typically go for walks with my daughter and my son, or just my daughter, just my son. We typically go for walks in the evening, and we'll go for 2-3 hour long walks. And so I get a lot of my exercise in at night with them. So we wait till the sun goes down because it's warmer in the evening. So from spring to fall, that's when we do the primary amount of our exercise. It's a great bonding time with family. So we get to spend a lot of really good quality time together because we can talk, we chat the whole time we're doing that. And so it's mostly habit that has developed from.
Right.
So it allows me to have that really good quality time with them. And then when the winter comes, unfortunately, it is just far too cold to go out for a 3-hour long walk. It is just way, way too cold. But I have a Precor elliptical at home, so I can do some exercise on that. And then I can also do my online books. So I have Audible that I have for that. And I can listen to YouTube videos, and I can listen to any of my previous recorded trainings that I have. So there's a lot of different courses and such that I've invested a lot of time, money, and effort into. And so I always practice those as well and keep myself just as sharp as I can. So that's just something I've built over the years. So I've done it since my kids were young teenagers. Now they're in university. So it's always just been a nighttime thing for me. So
Interesting how old habits die hard, right?
you got it. Yeah.
That's cool. So yeah, that sounds like a great evening routine in the summer.
Yes.
And then of course, having to pivot when it gets sub-zero and you can't go outside. One of the reasons I like to do exercise in the morning is because it raises my metabolism, it raises my energetic frequency. It gives me the kind of that blood flow, the breathing, the also just the feeling of like, hey, I just did something that was hard. Yes. And so then everything else seems easier, kind of like the cold shower, right?
Yes.
It's hard to get under that cold water. It's hard to make that choice. We're going to talk today about how discipline is doing what you want most over what you want now. What you want now is comfort. What you want most is more energy or more strength or more passion or more prosperity. And our comfort zone is always flying in the face of what we want most, because what we want now is our comfort zone. What we want most is abundance and power and prosperity and peace. And of course, exercise is a great way to raise our frequency so we can step into those higher levels of energy that allow us to really be at our best. Yes. So I would challenge you to, just like I challenged you with the cold shower, try it out for 1 week. I'm not saying do it forever, but just for like 15, 20 minutes. Do a little yoga session or a little stretch session or a little elliptical or something.
Great idea.
Add it in and just notice energetically, does that add more luminancy? If I don't even know if that's a word, but we'll call it Dornese for now if it's not. Does it add more luminance? Does it add more vibrance to your energy? Does it have you showing up with even more power? If so, you might want to do a sandwich of exercise, a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening. But this is the sort of thing where top producers are kind of like, they like to experiment. They're like, hey,
challenge accepted.
Right? Game on. Yes. I love it. And that's one of the things I love about you. Like, hey, I'll try something and that's one of the things that's amazing as well, is that like you take the challenge and then you really mean it. You know, some people, they'll raise their hand and say, hey, yeah, I'll do the cold shower. And then you never hear from them again and they never did it. But you, on the other hand, you've got that, grit and tenacity, and you own your word. When you say it, you mean it. That's another trait of a top producer, by the way. We don't have it in our tenets, but it's worth writing down as an additional tenet. We'll call that the 11th tenet. Your word is your bond. And Penny is a prime example, living, breathing example of that. So mornings, guys, what can you do to add rocket fuel to your morning routine? Penny mentioned the learn and burn. While your hands are busy, your mind is free. 2 birds, 1 stone, no extra time needed. So you get to improve your health while you improve your wealth. Listen to inspiration, motivation, education while you're getting your perspiration, if you know what I mean. So that's one really powerful thing you can do in your morning. For those of you who are people of faith, like I am, having some God time, some time to meditate, some time to get into the scriptures, meet with your maker. I find that just so much solace to my soul. It gets me anchored to purpose, gets me anchored to my true north. So that's a really powerful part that you may want to consider adding into your morning routine. Penny mentioned reading, journaling. I know Jim Rohn, the business philosopher, America's foremost business philosopher, as he's been coined. He's a very strong proponent of journaling. I think I've heard it said that, and I'm not sure if this comes directly from Jim Rohn or from one of his mentees, Tony Robbins. If life is worth living, it's worth reciting or capturing or journaling, something like that. So I'm terrible at journaling for some reason. I just don't have the proclivity to journal. But when I do, I'm like, man, I love just having moments to capture ideas and thoughts and dreams and goals and gratitudes. Certainly the cold shower, if you guys want to take your energy to a whole other level, like 10 espresso shots without having to go pee every 2 minutes, I double dog dare you to take a cold shower, even just for 3 minutes. Just like Penny took me up on the challenge, your energy will go through the roof. You'll be ready to walk through a freaking brick wall. It's incredible the energy you get. Uncomfortable? Hell yeah, it's uncomfortable. Can you breathe through it? Hell yeah, you can. And the other side of breathing through it and relaxing into it is you galvanized in your champion self, your winner self. And your wimp self, your weak self is washed down the drain. It is such a powerful practice. And certainly the hour of power is another thing to consider adding into your morning routine. And that's where you, as Brian Tracy coined, and it's a great term that I definitely relate to, and that is eat the frog first. Eat the frog first. And that's basically the yucky thing, the thing you don't like doing, the thing that's outside of your comfort zone that really pushes the needle on profit and performance. Do that first. So similar idea to winning your morning, right? Is do the hard thing like exercise, do the hard thing like prospecting, do the hard thing like the cold calling. And what you find is if you'll do those things consistently in the morning before you get into putting out fires and getting your fireman cap on and pipeline management and all that stuff, what you're going to find is you're in a frequency where it's like you're unstoppable. You just show up with mojo oozing out of your pores, and whatever people say is an objection, it doesn't even faze you. You eat it for breakfast and turn it into opportunity. You sidestep it, you get the appointment, you're resilient, you're resourceful, because when you feel at your best, you tend to do your best. Have you noticed, Penny?
Absolutely. 100%. Right?
That's what fueling your rocket in the morning is all about. That's what winning your morning is all about. And again, does this take discipline? Absolutely it does. You can't win without discipline. Just like, if you have a garden, you're not going to have an abundant garden in a beautiful garden, a exquisite manicured garden, a fruitful garden by default. That's not going to happen, right? There's a lot of discipline that is required to do that. You got to get rid of the pests. You got to pull out the weeds. You got to water. You got to fertilize. You got to care for it. You got to make sure that it's getting enough of the nutrients and the life-giving elements that allows it to thrive. And all that takes discipline. The same thing with your business, the same thing with your health, the same thing with your marriage, the same thing with your parenting, the same thing with your personal and professional development. It doesn't happen by default. It happens by design. So discipline is doing what you want most over what you want now. What you want most is a thriving pipeline. What you want now is to push paper around your desk and put out fires because it's comfortable and it's convenient and it's easy. And it makes you feel like you're getting something done because you're replying to that email and you're reaching out to that lender and you're calling that client. You're doing damage control. You're reaching out to the realtor. All these things are important to do, but they don't help you grow your business. They just help you get that one deal or those 2 deals or those 3 deals that you have in the pipeline across to the finish line, which is important. But just because it's important, it doesn't mean that it's what you want most. What you want most is to grow. You want to grow that pipeline, and that's where the discipline comes in. So that's the first of the 3 tenets we're going to cover today. What do you think, Penny? Shall we continue? Any questions on that before we proceed on the next one?
Well, I don't think I have any questions, but I absolutely love that one. I think mastering your morning is probably, I think that's a top tier key element to top producers. Every top producer that I know is a morning person. They jump in on their mornings and they're all over it. They are ready to start their days. They are in control of their projects. Like, I get up in the morning, I do a specific routine, and I dive into the projects. And then the fires, they come later in the day. Fires are always later in the day, right? So I've always been of the mindset that there is no such thing as a mortgage emergency. It's something I've always lived by.
I love that. That's worth a standing ovation. I love that. And what's interesting is when you own that as a philosophy, you prove yourself right. On the
Yes.
flip side, when you own the philosophy, I got to get it done now. I got to put the fire now. I can't wait. People can't, wait. I always have to do it now. And you have the philosophy that all the fires got to be put out now. Otherwise, I'm going to be dropped like a hot potato. The clients are going to back out. The realtors are going to dump me. Well, guess what? You prove yourself right on that too. Whatever you believe, you're going to prove yourself right. Question is, which
100%.
philosophy is going to lead to your blessed life, your best life? Which one's going to put you in the driver's seat versus, being in the trunk or the back seat or the passenger seat?
That's right.
So that is so poignant and so powerful. That's definitely a writer downer. Guys, if you're taking notes, that's a writer downer. Chances are you're going to get more writer downers from Penny than you are from me. So that's why I keep eliciting feedback from Penny, because she's dropping truth bombs all day, every day. So let's keep this rocking, shall we? Are we ready for the next one, Penny? What do you think?
Yeah, let's bring it.
All right, let's do this. So the fifth tenet of top producers is focus on the vital few versus the trivial many. Focus on the vital few versus the trivial many. So this is very much in sync with the ethos and the philosophy that drives why you want to win your mornings, because you want to fill your morning with the vital few versus getting swept away with the trivial many. And of course, that happens by design versus default, and this is certainly no exception. So in contrast, just to give you an idea of the juxtaposition between the low producers and the top producers, low producers tend to focus on the trivial many, the busy work, the urgent work, while top producers tend to focus on the vital few. So let's unpack the difference, because I think a big reason why mortgage pros get caught up in the trivial many is because they don't really understand the distinction between the trivial many and the vital few. And they're just in reactionary mode, and they're in habit force, because like we just talked about, old habits die hard. And if we're not being strategic about how we're allocating our time, then the default setting is what we get. Just like a garden, the default setting is weeds. If we're not intentional about this, guys, the default setting is the trivial many. That's what we're going to get. So what is the trivial many? The trivial many is the things that you do that are typically busy work type of activities that are urgent and important. So what are these sorts of things? They're things that chances are you fill your day with: pushing paper, chasing docs, replying to emails, replying to text messages, replying to phone calls, pipeline management. All this stuff is important, right? It's usually urgent and important because this business is very deadline driven, as you know. So why would I call it trivial if it's so urgent and important, Doran? Why would I call it urgent and important and also trivial? Those don't seem to jive. If it's urgent and important, isn't it vital? Well, that's the rub. That's the confusion that most people fall into. The reason why we call it the trivial many versus the vital few is because those tasks are working in the business versus working on the business. And if we just work in the business, we basically have a glorified job, trading time for money, and we're just an operator in task mode. We're not a business leader. We have a glorified job, trading time for money, and we are just doing mortgages. We're not building a mortgage empire. We're not building a mortgage business. We are doing mortgages. And that tends to keep us bogged down in minutia, and it only serves, does that serve us to growth, Penny? You tell me.
Not at all. Not at all.
What does it serve? What does it create? If we're not creating growth, what are we creating?
Stagnation.
Bingo. Bingo. And something tells me if someone's watching or listening to this podcast episode, they're not here for stagnation. They can do that on their own, right? They don't need help getting more stagnation. They want growth. And I'm here to tell you the reason why you have stagnation is because you're working in your business, not just on your business, and you're spending most of your time in the urgent and important, which is the trivial many, versus the important but not urgent, which is the vital few.
Yes.
So you can either create stagnation or you can create growth. You can't do both. And if you hadn't noticed by now, if you're not growing, you're dying. Your business is dying if you're not growing. There's no in between. It's either sliding backwards or is expanding upwards. There's no in between. And so that's why having these growth philosophies is so important, so that you have your choices, your decisions, your routines, your habits, your rituals all in sync with growth. Does it take discipline? Yes, but only until it becomes habit. And once you own the habit, here's the good news. Once you own the habit, it owns you. Then it's easier to do than not do. Just like Penny still working out in the evenings because it's now habit. Once she owns the habit, it owns her. Now it's easier to do than not do. It's baked into her DNA. Her working out in the morning is going to take discipline because it's not a habit for her, right? But once you own the habit, it owns you. Now let's talk about the vital few, because that's what creates growth. The vital few is things that are important but not urgent, which means they're important things if you want to create growth, if you want to have fulfillment, if you want to have flourishing. They're important, but here's the thing. No one's putting a gun to your head and forcing you to do these things. There's no deadline attached to them. You can do them today or not do them today. You can do them now or you can do them later. There's no urgency to it except for the urgency that you bring to it. There's no outside gun to your head forcing you to do these things. So let me give an example. If you want to have more health, more fitness, what are the vital few? Probably eating healthier, like less junk food, more whole foods, regular exercise, right? You guys know the drill. This is not rocket science. In your business, what are the vital few habits that create flourishing and growth? Chances are it's not pushing paper around your desk. It's prospecting, right? Booking appointments with top producing realtors, for example, setting up systems to mine the gold from your database to get more of the R3, as we like to call it on Planet Prosper, which is more repeat business, more referral business, more rave reviews. R3, right? That doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. That is the vital few. I'm sure you'd agree. Of course, your hour of power is a big part of that, where you're, for example, doing the 10-3-1, 10 outbounds, 3 live connections, 1 appointment with a top producing realtor. That is indeed an hour of power. It doesn't take that much time. Just 1 hour out of an 8-hour day is not a big deal. And it's not going to change your life in a day, but it will change your life if you will consistently do it daily. It's the compounding effect of that that's just absolutely enormous. What about in our marriage, Penny? Like, if we want to create a flourishing and meaningful, connected and intimate relationship with our significant other, something tells me, you've been married for a hot minute, something tells me that that kind of stuff doesn't happen by default, does it?
No, not at all. It takes a lot of work, but it is, it's well worth it.
Absolutely. So what would be like an example of a vital few? I'm putting you on the spot, but I want to kind of give everyone an example based on the spot, just kind of like mastermind of taking this concept of the vital few and translating it to different categories, different aspects of their life. We talked about health. We talked about business. What would be an example of a vital few inside of creating a flourishing marriage, for example?
Oh, wow. Um, I would say even sometimes it's just the little things, even. We just do things to show that we care for one another. Every day we put each other first, right? We put each
Yeah.
other first. It's about caring about one another and taking the time to um, ask each other about our days and to help each other in moments, check in on each other. Even little things. My husband works shift work. Sometimes I'll make him his coffee before he goes to work. Just little things like that. Put
Beautiful.
gas in each other's car, right? Just little things like that to help each other out. So that's just something little, but that's something that, helps us stand the test of time, right?
Yeah, that's the juice in the fruit right there. All those
Yeah.
little things.
Yeah.
And those are
They
important
add up to big
too,
things.
right? They're important, but they're not urgent. It's not like
Yes.
no one's putting a gun to your head and saying, hey, thou must get coffee for hubby, right?
That's right.
There's no voice from a cloud telling you to do that, and no burning bush commanding these things upon you. Certainly
Yes.
not with any sense of like urgency. It's important, but it's not urgent, right?
Yes.
That is
Yes.
the domain of greatness, guys.
Yes.
It's important, but not urgent. And that's why most people don't do it, because they're so run by adrenaline with gun to their head, do it now proclivity, that they're just caught up in the cage of the trivial many. They never get to the zone of greatness, which is the vital few. Mm-hmm. And it's the juice of life. It's being intentional. It's being conscientious. It's being thoughtful. It's being other person focused. It's being a servant. It's being humble. It's being affirming. It's being loving. All these little things. It's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And that's the rub, right?
You took my words. It's exactly what I was going to say. Because it applies in everything. Your Absolutely. Life, your relationships, your family, your business, everything. It's easy to do, but it's easy not to do.
Bingo. So like coming back to the marriage thing, quality time, making time for that, being intentional about it. Date night, I don't know how people do it without it. Honestly, it's like, how do you keep a fire raging if you're not stoking the fire with some kindling or some logs? I don't know how people do it. Creating those magic moments, having fun together. It's been said, and I think it's really true, that those who play together stay together. For those who have a common faith, those who pray together and play together, stay together, right? So there's that bonding, there's that intimacy in the spirit. Yes. It's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. It's important, but it's not urgent. You can do it now. You can say, mañana. Next thing you know, you're in the habit of not doing it, and you wonder why your marriage is falling apart after years and years and years of neglect. Same thing with business, same thing with health. So the goal is to be proactive, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So we want to be proactive about this stuff. We don't want to just leave it to happenstance, neglect, compromise. It's swimming upstream against the current of average, right? The current of our comfort zone. Again, discipline. I'm going to keep saying it just to ingrain this in you guys, because we need reminding more than we need educating. It takes discipline to do these things. Discipline is doing what we want most over what we want now. What we want now is our comfort zone. What we want most is power and absolute abundance and flourishing and thriving and all the good stuff of life. That's our blessed life, our best life. But we have to choose what we want most, which is those simple disciplines of success, over what we want now, which is our comfort zone, what's easy, what's convenient, what's comfortable. So how do we make the time for this, all these vital few activities and habits and rituals and routines, when we're already so bogged down with the trivial many? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about that, because oftentimes that's the first knee-jerk reaction. Like, I already am so overwhelmed, Doran and Penny. I don't have time for those things. I've tried that before. I'm not a morning person. I don't like reaching out to realtors. Gag, yuck, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't like exercise. It's uncomfortable. I sure as heck hate cold water. There's no way I'm taking a cold shower, right? So what you're going to notice is that there's going to be the itty bitty shitty committee, if you will, that comes from your comfort zone, that tells you why you can't, why you won't. And it tells you all the reasons why you tried it before and it didn't work. And so you build up all these reasons why you can't, why you won't. And it's really the difference between someone who's interested in success versus committed. If you're interested in success, there'll always be something that stops you. There's always something too hard, too difficult, too inconvenient. You buckle like cheap lawn furniture and you shrink back to your comfort zone because you want comfort more than you want to conquer. So unfortunately, until you have enough pain, which is the consequence of compromise and neglect and stagnation, the pain of your comfort zone, you're probably not going to be committed. You're going to be interested. But once you have enough pain, you're like, there's no way I'm going to let any more weeds grow in my garden. There's no way I'm going to let it be the thief of the fruit from my garden any longer. I'm sick and tired of living a mediocre life. I'm sick and tired of the consequences of being out of shape, being broke as a joke, living in lack, limitation, and scarcity. Once you have enough pain, then you shift from being interested to being committed. And the interested always find an excuse, but the committed always find a way. You're going to have pain either way, friends. You're going to have the pain of neglect and compromise and mediocrity, or you're going to have the pain of success that leads to freedom, abundance, and living your blessed life your best life. The pain of discipline weighs an ounce. The pain of regret weighs a ton. So choose your pain. You're going to have pain either way. What I do is I like to get myself connected to the pain of the consequence of compromise and neglect and drifting. And I really don't like that pain because I'm going to know I'm going to have pain either way. And once I realize I'm going to have pain either way, I much prefer to choose the lesser pain that leads to a greater reward versus the greater pain that leads to more sorrow and more mediocrity, lack, limitation, scarcity. That's like, to me, that's just revolting. I absolutely hate that kind of pain because who I am flies in the face of that. My identity is like, man, I'm a champion with champion habits, champion routines, champion rituals, because that's who I am. That's who I'm meant to be. So if you find it hard to do these sorts of disciplines, I invite you to upgrade your identity, upgrade who you see yourself to be, upgrade the legacy you see yourself leaving, upgrade who you see in your own eyes when you look in the mirror. Do you see a champion? Do you see a winner? Do you see a legacy creator? Do you see someone who makes a difference in the world? Do you see someone who leads by example? I invite you, if you're not that yet, I invite you to use your imagination and start to declare it. More and more, I'm showing up like a champion. More and more, I'm cultivating champion level habits. More and more, cultivating those champion level rituals. And if you'll just speak that, what you're going to find is you're going to start to live into that. And then you plan your work, you work your plan. And then you're going to find maybe there's some things you can delegate. Maybe there's some things you can automate. Maybe there's some things that you can put on autopilot in your CRM. There's always ways to do it when you're committed. But if you're just interested, there'll always be something that stops you. When you're committed, there is no obstacle too big for the committed. Have you noticed that, Penny?
Oh, yes. Big time.
I'm getting fired up just thinking about it, talking about it.
I was just thinking about, what the difference is between people that are committed versus people that are interested, and, the pain factor of people that, are going to go through that moment where they're going to make that call versus the people that are just sitting on the sidelines and not taking action, right? Both are painful, right? So, people go, they know they need to call that realtor in the morning because they know it's going to lead to building some business. And they're going, that's painful. It's kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid, right? You rip off that Band-Aid, but then the pain goes away. You make that call to the realtor and you go, oh, it really wasn't that bad, right? And then you're ready to make another call, right? Versus not making those calls and then looking at your dwindling bank account because you're not making those calls. That's like the slow rip of the Band-Aid. It's so much more painful because you're not making those calls to your client base. You're not making those calls to the realtors. You're not making those connections. And so instead, you just got this slow burn of that Band-Aid being ripped off real slow. So both are painful. Choose your pain. Personally, I'd rather rip that Band-Aid off real fast.
Absolutely. And it's the paradox, right? If we'll only do the things that are comfortable now, life is going to become very uncomfortable in the future.
Yes.
If we'll do the things that are uncomfortable now, those simple disciplines of success, life's going to become mighty comfortable in the future.
You got it.
Paradox, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that is something you want to really start to practice and cultivate and bake that into your identity, that you're proactive, that you're disciplined. And it starts with little things like flossing your teeth or making your bed or waking up earlier. And what happens is it starts to stack and build momentum just in your own identity. You're like, man, I floss, I'm disciplined. I make my bed, I'm disciplined. I work out in the morning, I'm disciplined. And that identity as a disciplined person becomes stronger and stronger. And the roots of that identity tree in your own soul grow deeper and deeper and deeper. So it doesn't happen in a day, it happens daily. So with that in mind, let's continue with the third and final installment of our 3 tenets we're going to reveal today on our second episode, today's second episode in this 3-part series. We just need a drum roll. And I don't think I have one. I have just one rim shot. That's all I got for you. Just one rim shot.
All right.
I know that was pretty lame, right? But hey, that's all I got for you. So
Beautiful.
here's the sixth tenet, guys. We're going to wrap up with this one, and that is dance in your strengths, delegate your weaknesses. Dance in your strengths and delegate your weaknesses. Now, dancing in your strengths sounds fun, right? Delegating your weaknesses can be a little bit foreboding for some people because they're like, well, I don't know who I can delegate to. If I want it done right, I got to do it myself. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. So that's where we have a hard time delegating because it feels like, hey, if I'm going to delegate, that's going to cost me something. It's going to cost me money. It's going to cost me time. I've tried that before. It didn't work. I ended up just having more headaches because they made more messes, more things didn't get done right. Clients getting mad at me, realtors getting mad at me, losing partners, right? If you've tried to delegate and you were once bitten, twice shy around that, then you may have just made a vow and say, I'm just going to do it myself and keep all the money and not have to delegate and just keep things small and simple. But I'm here to tell you that there's a method to the madness that can allow you to do this at a top producer level. So everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, right? Top producers play to their strengths and mitigate and or delegate their weaknesses. One of the things that is really important when you're dancing in your strengths, when you want to delegate your weaknesses and dance in your strengths, is you need to know what your strengths are. One of the best ways to do that, in my mind, based on my experience of the last 10 years of learning more and more about personality assessments, is understanding your personality. And one of the best personality assessments that's based on observable behavior is called the DISC profile. You can check it out and get your own for free, your own personality assessment on the DISC. If you haven't done so already, at tonyrobbins.com/DISC. Shout out to Tony Robbins. You're welcome. I wish I could be like an affiliate or something. That'd be kind of cool because I've sent a lot of people that way. But Tony Robbins is getting free traffic from all the people forwarding people to his site. It's a brilliant profile personality assessment. And to give you like a super crash course on it, there's 4 different personality types. DISC is an acronym, DISC. D is the driver. Those are the Donald Trumps and the Margaret Thatchers of the world. Their strength would be being decisive, being driven, being results orientated. Their weaknesses would be being not very detail orientated. That's definitely me. Being impatient. That's definitely me. Being domineering. I've been that too. Insensitive. I've definitely been that too. Easily frustrated for shizzy. That is definitely me. So I've already given myself away. I'm definitely a high D. How about you, Penny? Are you high D, moderate D, low D?
I'm right in the middle of the road for my D.
There you go. You're versatile.
I'm right in the middle. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm about 50% D.
See, that's how you put up with me. Because if you're really, really high D, you and I would be like
oil. Bang heads.
You and I would be like oil and water, right?
You got it.
Yeah. So too many chefs in the kitchen. So, and of course, high Ds tend to be pretty frustrated easily. And because I blabber too much, that would definitely, like, the high D in me is like, dude, you just need to shut up and get this episode over with. Let's get to the outcome. Let's get to the bottom line. So that's a high D. If you talk to someone in their bottom line kind of people, they're definitely high D. So there's superpowers and there's kryptonites to the high D. You need to know if you're high D. The next one I want to share with you, if you're not familiar with DISC, is the I. The I stands for influencer. So the influencers, they're the life of the party, right? Their superpowers are they're influential, they're persuasive, they're charismatic, they're relational, they're amazing salespeople. They can also be great at customer service. They're compassionate. They just have that pleasing personality, right? People love to be around them. They win friends easily. Their weaknesses are they tend to be a bit like a fart in a windstorm if they're not high S or high C. We'll cover that in a moment. They tend to be kind of disorganized. They lack structure. They're not detail oriented. They can be a little unreliable if they're not high S. They can be people pleasing, where they'll tell you what you want to hear, but then not follow through and be a little bit flaky. They can miss the details a lot and things fall through the cracks. So I am high I. So, I'm a bit of a fart in a windstorm when it comes to admin. Like I'm terrible at admin because I'm high I, but I'm relatively low C, very low C and kind of moderate S. And so, yeah, you can tell that's my kryptonite. But being that I'm relatively high I, that's where, I get myself in a little bit of a sales prison, if you will, because I'm really good at sales, but then I have a proclivity of thinking to myself, no one else can do it like me. So then I get caught in that box of doing it myself versus delegating it. So notice how my superpower became my kryptonite. Isn't that interesting? Right. So how about you, Penny? So that's one of the things I'm working on, by the way, is like people don't have to do it 100% like me. They could do it 80% as well as me. And that's 100% awesome, as Dan Martell said, right?
You got it.
To do it 80% as well as me is 100% awesome because I didn't have to do it. And we can reach more people, help more people, and I can focus on my superpowers. So how about you, Penny? I have a very strong sense that you're high I. Is that true?
I am. I'm a very high I. I score 100% on the I.
Yeah. So
I
that's
score 100% on another one too.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that because you are very reliable and very you show up. And that's very linked to another one we're going to get into in a moment. But one of the reasons why you have so many connections and friends and why you're such an amazing connector is because you're a high I. So that's part of your high I superpower. So that's an amazing superpower, by the way. Continuing on with my crash course.
Yes.
S is for steadiness. Steadiness. So Penny, she's this all day long on Sunday. She is very high S. One of the wonderful things about high S people, and I'm relatively high S as well, so Penny and I really align here, is they're structured, they're very reliable, they're very loyal, they're very dependable. They tend to, if they have high C, they tend to be pretty great administrators. I'm not high C, so I'm not a great administrator, but they're great at routine. You get them in those grooves and it's like they're like an Amtrak train with no brakes and no gears. They're not going to stop. They're going to stay in that same routine forever until you force them to stop. So they're relentless with their daily rituals and routines, which is awesome. The weakness is they can be marching east looking for the sunset, right? Marching relentlessly in the wrong direction. They tend not to pivot quickly. They pivot too little, too late. That's the proclivity. They lack innovation because they're just head down, doing the task, doing the routine. They don't really think about, iterating and creating and innovating because they're just in the routine. So that's where we need to have people in our life and resources and opportunities that help bring more of where we're weak, where other people are unique and we are weak, we can leverage their superpowers. So that's one of the things I love about Penny is she's got this creative mind and she can get me thinking outside the box. And I'm not so like structure with my head down, heading east, looking for the sunset. Because Penny is high S, but her high I and a lot of her superpowers that are God-given have also brought that iteration, innovation superpower to the table, which is amazing. But I love, Penny, that you are high S because you are reliable as the day is long.
Thank you. Yes. I like to think of myself that way too. I like to commit to something and then be there. It's just the way I operate.
Yeah, you show up. And the last in the disc profile of the different personality types, the fourth one is C for compliance. So if you're high C, then your superpower would be things like attention to detail. You get giddy with Excel spreadsheets, right? You love to follow the rules because that is less drama and you feel safe when you're inside the rules. You're amazing at administrative, any administration tasks, paperwork, keeping things in order. All your, desks are all clean. Your drawers are all organized. Your white shirts are with your white shirts. Your black shirts are with your black shirts. Like everything's organized. I love high C people. Man, it's just like amazing way to operate. And their weaknesses, of course, is they're inside the box. They tend to be a little bit like a prisoner inside the box of thinking inside the box. They couldn't sell their life. They couldn't sell something if their life depended on them because they will avoid ruffling feathers. And they'll be like, I agree with their objection. Why would I try to overcome the objection? I agree with that objection. I'm concerned about that too. I would be concerned about that objection too. And so you get totally connected with the objection because you have that proclivity to avoid taking risks. So one of the downsides to high C is you're not a big risk taker, which is great. We need people like that. That being said, of course, Penny and I are both relatively low. I'm way, way, way in the dumps of like in the basement of C. Like I'm underneath the basement. I'm the basement of C. How about you, Penny? I'm assuming you're relatively low C as well.
My C is like a low middle C. So I'm
See,
about 40%.
that's why you could do mortgages, the mechanics of mortgages well, because you have to be
Yes,
attention to detail. Right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And
I
that's
can
why you
pick out
catch
those
all my
little
mistakes.
details, typos.
That's why you catch all my typos and all my mistakes, because you have that high C. So I love that
Correct.
about you.
Yes. It's
And of
high
course,
enough to catch those details, right? Yeah.
absolutely.
But
So
not high enough that I like it and want to be stuck in it all day, right? It's high
yeah,
enough to catch it.
yeah. So you've
That's
got it enough to be able to be light years ahead of me, but certainly not enough that you'd want to be a desk monkey in a cubicle all day, every day,
you got it.
crunching numbers or messing with spreadsheets or organizing things.
That's right.
So dancing in your strengths is doing things that are inside your zone of genius, the things you love to do, the things that charge your battery. For me, that's content creation, speaking, leading, teaching, coaching, mentoring. For Penny, I'm assuming a lot of what juices her, juices me when it comes to that, when it comes to coaching and creating. Is that true, Penny?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So we share that. That's why we're on mission together. Thankfully, we don't have all the same weaknesses and superpowers. Otherwise, one of us would be redundant. So where I'm weak, you are unique, and vice versa in a lot of these things.
Yes.
But our weaknesses tend to drain our battery, right? Those things that just, when we do 10 minutes of it, we just feel drained, let alone an hour of it. And so we need to be playing more to our superpowers and less to our kryptonites. So for me, my kryptonites are things like admin, bookkeeping, paperwork, things like that. And I really don't like the minutia. Minutia drains my battery faster than a New York minute. I mean, it's just like, it sucks my battery dry. So top producers, they intentionally delegate their weaknesses so they can operate more in their superpowers. They don't leave it to happenstance or chance. They do it intentionally. So as you delegate more and more of your weaknesses, you're going to have more and more time to focus on high income producing activities that charge you. So for example, most of the top producers that I work with and that I've had the privilege of, coaching and observing, the $100 million top dog producers in the top 1% of the industry in terms of income earners, they tend to spend literally 15 to 30 minutes just doing that initial consult with the client, that discovery meeting. And then they pass the rest to their team, and their team takes it all the way to the finish line. I kid you not. Yes. 15 to 30 minutes. And then they pass the baton and their team runs with it and closes it from there. That means they have so much more time than the average to focus on rainmaking versus paper pushing, focus on lead generation versus chasing docs, to focus on marketing and team building versus just working in the business. They're working on the business. Notice success leaves clues. So if you're wanting to delegate more of your weaknesses so you can dance more in your superpowers, I got 3 real quick steps for you. We call it the staircase to freedom, stairway to freedom. So the first step on the stairway, or that stair steps, is hiring an unlicensed virtual assistant. You can find someone like that, top talent, off Upwork for like $5 to $15 an hour. They can do admin, data entry, chase docs, that kind of stuff, anything that's unlicensed, $5 to $15 an hour. I don't care if you're broke as a joke. You can afford to have part-time, spare time, unlicensed virtual assistant. Anybody who's really committed to growing their business can afford 20, 25 bucks a week to start to delegate some of those sorts of things. So that's step 1. Step 2 is hiring a licensed assistant. So of course, you're going to have to pay them more because they're licensed, right? But they can do things like taking apps, rate quotes, customer service type of things, interacting with the client. Those tend to be a higher investment, like $50,000 a year plus a per file bonus. for every deal that they close. That's an example of how you might compensate someone like that who's a licensed assistant. So you're not going to get that person on day one. You might get them after you're closing 5 deals a month, 7 deals a month, something like that. And then the third step, and there's more steps, but for the sake of brevity, we'll just keep it to 3, is hire an ops manager. Now, when I was working with Penny, when she was a client of ours in our 7-Figure Lender Academy, that's one of the things we did is we helped Penny attract a rock star operations manager. And that was a big investment. Do you remember that, Penny? I mean, that was like you were freaked out and excited at the same time. That was a big bullet to swallow.
It was.
So tell us what was that like for you in terms of making that commitment, and what difference did that make to hire that operations manager in terms of freeing you up to focus in your superpowers?
Yeah. So great question. So it was very nerve-wracking, of course, because, when you're jumping outside of your comfort zone, everything can be, you get that moment of nervousness. But I will tell you, it was probably one of the smartest moves I made in my business, because it allowed me to delegate everything that I hated doing to somebody else that loved doing it, right? That's the beauty of hiring someone that has strengths where you have weakness. And so hiring that person, they literally took everything off my desk that I didn't want to do or that I didn't have time to do. And they made it just go away. And that became their job, and they loved it. And that filled their day. And so it cost more money than I anticipated originally. I was worried about being able to pay for it, all of those things. But then I think I tripled my income or something that year. I made so much more money when I did that. And it was because they freed up that time that I was able to go out and build all of those partnerships, those referral partnerships. I built realtor relationships, mostly realtor relationships, a couple with financial planners, and one with an accountant as well. And so it was building those relationships that was able to fill the pipeline. And then the pipeline getting filled, you worry, you're like, oh, but then you've got to deal with all the minutia of the deals. No, you don't, because you've got somebody that's doing all those things. So now it's now I'm just, doing all the things that I love, which is building those relationships with the referral partners, having conversations with clients, and then passing the deal off and letting them deal with it. Huge game changer. Huge game changer. When you just bite the bullet and you're like, okay, I'm just going to, I've got some room on the line of credit. I got a little bit in the bank, and we're going to make this fly. And, and you make it happen. Right. So
screw it, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Out of the nest, grow some wings on the way down.
You got it.
Had you not done that, you would have been stuck at the same level, right? Yeah. You never would have tripled your income. You never would have been able to focus more on those superpower zones of genius activities that charge your battery versus drain your battery. And you would have just been, doing the same old thing, getting the same old results, and being bogged down with all that minutia and having your battery drained every day with that minutia and stagnation and spinning your wheels and not feeling like you're growing. And if we're not growing, we're dying.
Yes. Well, and something else incredible that I can add to that as well was that in making that shift in my business, what it allowed me to do was to make more money while working less hours. Wow. I actually ended up working less than 40 hours a week. I trimmed it down to about 30 hours a week instead, and then created my Freedom Fridays. And so, by doing that and making that simple shift and biting the bullet and hiring someone and paying them what they're worth, which was their weight in gold, it was an absolute game changer. And so I say to anyone that is sort of teetering on that fence and trying to decide what they want to do next, and, they're stuck in, the paper pit, as I like to call it, which is they're stuck in the world of collecting documents and all those things that they don't want to do anymore. And they want to take their business to the next level. There's ways to make that happen. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So there you go, guys. It works when you work it, and you'll never regret being strategic about dancing in your strengths and delegating your weaknesses. So how about yourself? Do a little self-inventory, if you will. What are your weaknesses? What are your superpowers? What's your kryptonite? What is that next strategic hire, not all the strategic hires, just the next one, the most important one, that next step for you that will allow you to dance more in your superpowers because you can strategically delegate your weaknesses. The more you can be intentional about that and strategic about it and just say, screw it, let's do it, like Penny did, the more you're going to continue to climb the mountain of success, working smarter, not harder, having more free time, more juice in your battery, feeling more fulfilled, and doing the things that you absolutely love doing, living your blessed life, your best life. So in recap, we've covered 3 additional tenets today. We covered 3 last episode. We covered 3 today. In recap, the 4th tenet was make the most of your mornings, win your morning, win your day. The 5th tenet was focus on the vital few versus the trivial many. And the 6th tenet is dance in your strengths, delegate your weaknesses. This is what top producers do. This is the philosophy they live by. So I think that pretty much covers it. Hey, Penny?
Beautiful. I love it. I think that's incredible. So we've covered a lot of really great topics today. So how can our listeners learn a little bit more?
Well, you guys probably have heard this before, but if you don't know, you should certainly know that we have an amazing reservoir of resources on our new school community, Mortgage Marketing Coach on School. If you didn't know, now you know. Check out our 3 Days to Thrive training. It's a phenomenal 3-day training that will absolutely set you up to thrive in 2025. And all you need to do is go to the App Store, download the School app, SKOOL, School, and then search Mortgage Marketing Coach on School, and you will find us and join our growing community of mortgage pros that are growth-minded, ambitious, just like you, and be part of some amazing trainings we do every single week. Master classes. We have, I think, at least 5 or 6 master classes already in the can there you can dive into, from the habits of top producers to how to mine the gold from your database, how to 2x your closings from the same amount of deals you're already doing, like all this stuff. We should be charging for this, but we're doing it to serve our mortgage community. I have a feeling you're going to absolutely dig it. So go ahead and check it out. If you dig this, you'll definitely dig our mortgage community, Mortgage Marketing Coach community on School. The second thing is, if you are listening to this or watching it and you're like, man, I need me some tools, systems, and proven recipes for the things you're talking about. Like, how do I do this hour of power? What do I say to these realtors? How do I flip the script so they need me more than I need them? How do I set it up so I can structure my day for maximum productivity? How do I do that 10-3-1, 10 outbounds, 3 live connections, 1 appointment? What do I do at the appointments to get these realtors eating out of my hand? How do I get them stick to me like super glue so they start sending me all their business all the time? How do I become the irreplaceable hero to these realtors? How do I mine the gold from my database? How do I get more R3, more repeat business, more referral business, more rave reviews? If you're curious about any of that stuff, like to, bypass the trouble and struggle of trying to reinvent the wheel and you just go straight to what works, just stick your key in the ignition and drive away, because you'd much prefer to take the elevator versus grinding up the 100-story staircase with a 50-pound backpack, busting your buns, sweating your buns off, doing it the hard way, then I invite you to book a call with myself or one of our consultants at mortgagemarketingcoach.com/chat. On that call, we're going to hop on Zoom. We're going to connect with you personally. We're going to have an honest, transparent, real deal conversation about where you're at now, where you want to be. And if we are certain we can help you create a breakthrough, we'll show you what that looks like inside of our proven system. If we deem that we're the right fit, if we discern that we have the right alignment. If not, we'll be the first to advise you to pass. Either way, you will leave that meeting with massive value, massive clarity, and chances are we're going to have some fun. Unless you're not very fun, then we won't. I'm just playing with you. But you get the idea. If you feel that would be meaningful and worthwhile to you, go ahead and book a call at mortgagemarketingcoach.com/chat. And last but not least, if you got value from today's session, and if you didn't, by the way, you probably don't have a heartbeat, or maybe you're just not in the mortgage business, or maybe you just have zero ambition. Because if you have a heartbeat and you have some ambition and a few brain cells to rub together, chances are you got something from today. So if you got some value from today, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast. That way you don't miss any future episodes. We got a whole lot more in store. And thank you in advance for sharing these episodes with your colleagues, your friends in the mortgage space, because sharing is caring. And if you feel like we are deserving of a 5-star review, please do, because it helps us reach more awesome mortgage pros just like you. So, Penny, thank you for making this awesome podcast. You shared some amazing gems, and it's been a delight to do this podcast, a series in general, but certainly today's session in particular. We had a ton of fun, and it was great to roll with you on this. Always great to be a co-pilot here on Planet Prosper with the one and only Penny Riley.
Well, thank you so much again for having me, Doran. These are always fun. I always have a blast with you, and I love being able to share little tidbits of what I've learned over the last 25 years, because certainly there hasn't been a dull moment in the last 25 years. So I love to be able to share little bits of what I've learned, and I love to hear from you, because you've been in the game almost as long as I have.
I tell you, we are definitely certified, bona fide, qualified sucker for punishment, and we have paid our dues. And it's so good to be able to give back, to redeem our pain into our purpose, if you will, by helping other people rise above the pitfalls that we stepped into so you don't have to. So
yes.
Thank you, Penny, for being on mission with me to do that. And guys, just remember, your business is a personal development course with a compensation plan attached. The more you grow, the more your income grows. I should say that again, just to make sure I get it right. Your business is a personal development course with a compensation plan attached. The more you grow, the more your income grows. So don't just go to that next level. Let's grow to that next level. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll see you on the 3rd episode, where we drop the final 4 tenets of top producers.